right, we're going to continue on with chapter 1 of Philip Yancey's The Bible Jesus Read, an exploration of the Old Testament. And the first chapter is entitled, Is the Old Testament Worth the Effort? And the next portion of chapter 1 starts with, Neither Testament is enough. Christians of all stripes hold one thing in common. We believe the Old Testament is not enough. Jesus the Messiah came to introduce a new covenant, or New Testament, and following the Apostle Paul, we look back on the Old Testament period as a time of preparation. Without question, I agree, yet I am increasingly convinced that neither is the New Testament enough. On its own, it proves insufficient for understanding God or our world. When Thomas Cahill wrote the book The Gifts of the Jews, he chose the subtitle, How a Tribe of Desert Nomads Changed the Way Everyone Thinks and Feels. He's surely right. Western civilization builds so directly on the foundations laid in the Old Testament era that it would not otherwise make sense. As Cahill points out, the Jewish belief in monotheism gave us a great whole, a unified universe that can, as a product of one creator, be studied and manipulated scientifically. Ironically, our technological modern world traces back to that tribe of desert nomads. The Jews also gave us what Cahill calls the conscience of the West. The belief that God expresses himself not primarily through outward show, but rather through the still small voice of conscience. A God of love and compassion. He cares about all of his creatures, especially human beings created in his own image. And he asks us to do the same. Every person on earth has inherent human dignity. Following that God, the Jews gave us a pattern for the great liberation movements of modern history and for just laws to protect the weak and minorities and the oppressed. According to Cahill, without the Jews, and this is a quote, we would never have known the abolitionist movement, the prison reform movement, the anti-war movement, the labor movement, the civil rights movement, the movements of indigenous and dispossessed peoples for their human rights, the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, the solidarity movement in Poland, the free speech and pro-democracy movements in such far eastern countries as South Korea, the Philippines, and even China. As so many of the concepts and words we use daily, new, individual, personal, history, freedom, spirit, justice, time, faith, pilgrimage, revolution, derive from the Old Testament, that we can hardly imagine the world and our place in it without relying on the Jewish heritage. A comic character in one of Mallory's plays suddenly discovers, I am speaking prose. I am speaking prose. Our roots go so deep in Old Testament thinking that in many ways, human rights, government, the treatment of neighbors, our understanding of God, we are already speaking and thinking Old Testament. Most assuredly, we cannot understand the New Testament apart from the Old. The proof is simple. Try understanding Hebrews, Jude, or Revelation without any reference to the Old Testament. Allusions or concepts. It cannot be done, which may explain why many modern Christians avoid those books too. The Gospels can be read as standalone stories, but a reader unacquainted with the Old Testament will miss many layers of richness in them. Paul constantly appealed to the Old Testament. Without exception, every New Testament author wrote about the new work of God on earth while looking through the prism of the earlier or old work. A Chinese philosopher insisted on riding his mule backwards so that he would not be distracted by where he was going and could instead reflect on where he had been. The Bible works in somewhat the same way. The epistles shed light backwards on the events of the Gospels so that we understand them in a new way. Epistles and Gospels both shed light backward to the Old Testament. For centuries, the phrase, as predicted by the prophets, was one of the most powerful influences on people coming to faith. Justin the Martyr credited his conversion to the impression made on him by the Old Testament's predictive accuracy. The brilliant French mathematician Pascal also cited fulfilled prophecies as one of the most important factors in his faith. Nowadays, few Christians read the prophets except in search of Ouija board like clues into the future. We have lost the Reformers' profound sense of unity between the two testaments. Understanding our civilization and understanding the Bible may be important reasons for reading the Old Testament, but the title of the book hints at perhaps the most important reason. It's the Bible that Jesus read. He traced in its passages every important fact about himself and his mission. He quoted from it to settle controversies, which opponents such as the Pharisees, Sadducees, and Satan himself. The images Lamb of God, Shepherd, Sign of Jonah, Stone which the builders rejected, that Jesus used to define himself came straight from the pages of the Old Testament. Once a government tried to amputate the Old Testament from the Christian scriptures. The Nazis of Germany forbade study of this Jewish book. And Old Testament scholarship disappeared from German seminaries and journals. In 1940, at the height of Nazi power, Dietrich Bonhoeffer defiantly published a book on Psalms and got slapped with a fine. In letters of appeal, he argued convincingly that he was explicitly explicating the prayer book of Jesus Christ himself. Jesus quoted often from the Old Testament, Bonhoeffer noted, and never from any other book, even though the Hebrew canon had not been officially closed. Besides, much of the Old Testament explicitly or implicitly points to Jesus. When we read the Old Testament, we read the Bible Jesus read and used. These are the prayers Jesus prayed, the poems he memorized, the songs he sang, the bedtime stories he heard as a child, the prophecies he pondered. He revered every jot and tittle of the Hebrew Scriptures. The more we comprehend the Old Testament, the more we comprehend Jesus. Said Martin Luther, the Old Testament is a testamental letter of Christ, which he caused to be opened after his death and read and proclaimed everywhere through the gospel. In a poignant passage from his gospel, Luke tells of Jesus spontaneously appearing by the side of two disciples on the road to Emmaus. Even though rumors of the resurrection were spreading like wildfire, clearly these two did not yet believe, as Jesus could tell by looking into their downcast eyes. In a kind of practical joke, Jesus got them to repeat all that had happened to this man, Jesus. They had not yet recognized him. What had happened to him over the past few days, and then he gave them a rebuke. How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Christ have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. Today, we need an Emmaus Road experience in reverse. The disciples knew Moses and the prophets, but could not conceive how they might relate to Jesus the Christ. The modern church knows Jesus the Christ, but it's fast losing any grasp of Moses and the prophets. Elsewhere, Jesus told the story of two men who built houses that from the outside looked alike. And the true difference between them came to light when a storm hit. One house did not fall. Even though the rain poured down, streams rose and winds beat against it, because its foundation rested on the rock. The second house, foolishly built on the sand, fell with a great crash. In theology as well as in construction, foundations matter. And that's where we're going to end today. We'll see you next week.